Chullin Daf Tzadikei, I apologize in advance. It's Erev Shabbos and there's a lot of people running around here. But there was an unbelievable story where enemies, one met the other and he says to him, "Look, if we were friends, you would be able to benefit from my barbecue." He said, "In fact, I did benefit from the meat." He said, "How so?" He said, "I bought it from the butcher." So the guy says, "Well, the butcher? I sold that guy a treif animal. You ate treif. You should be my friend." He says, "Rebbe, although Rebbe holds that you're allowed to buy meat from a guy, he said this guy's a shaita, and if he was over and he sold treifa meat to a guy, it doesn't mean that everybody else has to suffer and they can't eat that day from the goyim, because there's a raiv. Most of the meat that day came from Jews, so therefore it's mutter to eat." But Tosis points out, from that specific guy that did buy the treif meat, you're not allowed to. The other pshat in Rebbe said no. That guy was just messing with him. He fooled him. He said that he sold the treif to the guy. He didn't really mean it. He just wanted to upset him. Meaning, had he really sold it to the guy, it would really be usher for everybody to buy meat that day from all the goyim. Rav says, "Basar shenesalim in ayin." He doesn't really say it, but we said in the name of Rav, "Basar shenesalim in ayin" is usher. The famous halacha that if meat is unwatched for a moment, you're not allowed to eat the meat. Says the Gemara, what happened was, Rav observed somebody rinsing a head of a dead animal in the river, and it fell out of his hands. So the fellow went and took a net and removed the head from the river. And doing so, he pulled out 2 heads from the river. Said Rav, both heads are asur. So you see from that, from the fact that that city was a city of mostly Jews, why would Rav say that it's asur? There's a raiv. Obviously, he holds that we have to be concerned that maybe a bird came and dropped the head into the river from a head from another city. Now, since Rav didn't say it specifically, what we could say is that what happened was that port, as Rashi says, Pei Vav Reish Tes, that port was a port of Goyim. You're right, the city was Roiv Jews, but the port was Roiv Goyim, and therefore Rav said it's Asur. Now, maybe you could ask a question from Rebbe. Rebbe says you're allowed to buy meat from a Goy. The answer is that the reason why you're allowed to buy from a Goy is because the Goy is watching it. He makes sure that the birds don't come and switch out his meat. What if he didn't watch it for a minute? Well, we don't know. So we could assume that he watched it all the time. The famous case of Teisha Chanuya is if somebody buys a piece of meat and he's not sure if it's from the 9 kosher stores or the 1 not kosher store. So there's a concept called Kavua Kamechza Mechza Dami. Since these 9 stores are stationary, they're in one place, so the Roiv goes from 90% to only 50%. They're considered only 50%. However, if he found a piece of meat outside of the stores, so there's nothing stationary there, so now we say called a parish, Meruba parish, and therefore it has a roiv. The question is, he found a piece of meat in the middle of the street, it's basar shenesalim in ayin. How is he allowed to eat it? Maybe a bird dropped it there from another city, you lose the roiv. So the answer is, we have to say that a guy was watching it, a guy had it the whole time, and he took it from the guy. But we can't say this answer in the next case. You have a case where the city is shared by goyim and non-goyim Jews, and you found an uncooked piece of meat, so we say, well, let's see, most of the butchers are Jewish, it's a kosher piece of meat. What if it was a cooked piece of meat? We say, well, if most of the citizens in that city are Jewish, it's kosher. The question is, if the guy was watching it, we have to assume that the guy cooked it. So over there, you can't say that. So what's the answer? The answer is that this person noticed how it fell out of somebody's hand, and he watched it the entire time, and that's why he's able to eat it, because most of the people in that city are Jewish. The halacha is, if you have large limbs that are found in the Beis Hamikdash, we have to assume that they're an oila, and smaller cut up pieces are from a chatos, because that's what you do. You cut up the pieces of the chatos, and the oila you don't cut up. What if you found these pieces outside of the Beis Hamikdash? Large pieces are considered an nevela. Small pieces, says Rav, are not a nevela. What he means is not that you could eat it, but rather it doesn't have the tum of nevela. And Levi says that it is tomei. You're allowed to eat it. Not only is it not tomei, but you're allowed to eat it. Now, how did Rav eat meat? If basar shenesalim and ayin, you're not allowed to eat. So how did he ever have meat? Even if you put it in a refrigerator, let's say, maybe that's considered nesalim and ayin, you're not watching it. The answer is either he ate it immediately after the shechita, or it was locked up and sealed, or he had a special simon, such as cutting it in triangles like a hamantash. Says the Gemara story. Rav went to the ship station to catch a ferry station, and as he got there, the ferry showed up. Says Rav, that's a simon that good things are going to happen. There's going to be a yontav when I get to the place I want to get to, my son-in-law's house. In fact, he got to his son-in-law's house, And before he walked in, he peeked through the door and he noticed a large animal hanging, ready to be eaten. He said, "Oh, it's a yontav, this is a suda." He knocks on the door and everybody comes out to greet him. And the chef came to greet him, everybody came to greet him, but he kept his eyes watching the animal. And he told his family, "Look, had I not been watching the animal constantly from the moment that you came to greet me, it would have been usher to eat the meat." You see here an amazing chiddush that even a large animal that can't really be taken from with a crow, it's still a problem of basar shenesalam min ha'ayin. Says the Gemara, Rav himself didn't eat the meat. Why didn't he eat the meat? Don't say that he's over on loisa nachashu. You're not allowed to predict the future, because Rav explains the loisa nachashu has to be like Eliezer Eved Avram. When he dictated, he said it has to be like this, and he was going to be soymech only on if the girl Rivka would do this and this, then it would be the right shidduch. But typically, just saying this is a good siman, and he's not relying on that, that's not considered nichush. So why didn't he eat the meat? The answer is because there's a difference between a sudas mitzvah and a sudas rishus. We're talking about a case, an amazing thing, says the Gemara. There was a daughter of a Talmid Chacham who married an Amoritz. And a daughter of Talmid Chacham should not marry an Amoritz. Since she married him, it goes down a step and it's no longer sudas mitzvah, becomes sudas rishus, and Rav did not want to benefit from a sudas rishus. Says the Gemara, how do you check, if you're a gadol, how do you check to see if it's a good time to go out on a journey? Says the Gemara, if you were Rav would watch the ferry. If the ferry came into the station as he was showing up, that was a good siman for him. Shmuel would open up a sefer, and whatever the psukim said, whatever siman he got out of the psukim, and Rabbi Yochanan would ask a local child to say your psukim that you learned from Cheder, sort of like Mordechai, etc. There's other stories like that in Shas. And the Gemara says a story that happens to Rabbi Yochanan and how the psukim worked for him. When Rav was alive, Rabbi Yochanan would correspond with Rav, and he would call Rav Rabbeinu Shebebavel, our Rebbe in Bavel. When Rav was nifter and Shmuel took over in Bavel, Rabbi Yochanan didn't give that kind of cover to Shmuel. He said Chavereinu Shebebavel, our friend. Shmuel didn't like that. Shmuel felt that he should have more respect, that people in Bavel would respect him more if Rabbi Yochanan respected him. So he tried to impress him by sending him a letter with 60 years of a calendar. He was really good in astronomy. Rabbi Yochanan was not impressed. So he sent him 13 camels with treifas, different animals and treifas. Says Rashi, that's a guzma, but it was a tremendous amount. Rabbi Yochanan was impressed. So Rabbi Yochanan said, I want to go see my new Rebbe, Shmuel. So he asked the kid, say over your psukim that you learned in the Cheder. Says the kid, Shmuel mace. Shmuel is dead. So Rabbi Yochanan said, oh, then I can't go to Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Shmuel is not dead. But the HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to be matriach him, so he sent him this pasuk. After a person builds a house or gets married or has a child and he does business and he's successful, he should know that he's going to continue with his success. Says Rebbe Lazar, he ruins it a little bit. He says, well, it has to happen 3 times success, then you know you're successful. What about meat on a string? And are you concerned that a bird came and switched it out with another meat of a string? That's really a siman. Says Rav, that's a siman. Rav Nachman of Narda says that there was once a story where the crows dropped liver and kidneys on the street. It was Erev Yom Kippur. There was so much. Says Rav Nachman of Narda, since most of the people of Erev Yom Kippur are Jewish that are shechting, you can assume it's kosher meat. And he doesn't hold of Rav that Basar Shenesalam min ha'ayin is a problem. And Rav Huna, last halacha before Shabbos, is Rav Huna told Reb Chia bar Oven that if you could tell, you recognize the piece of meat, then it's kosher, even though you don't have a siman. Have a wonderful Shabbos.